Marie Antoinette wasn't just a queen. She was a symbol, a woman who became both adored and hated, remembered as the glittering jewel of Versailles and the tragic victim of the French Revolution. People recall her for her towering wigs, her endless gowns, and the famous, though likely false quote, "Let them eat cake." But behind the silks and diamonds was a queen trapped inside rituals of beauty, hygiene, and illusion. Like Elizabeth I and Louis XIV, her cleanliness wasn't about health. It was about power, appearances, and survival. And some of the things she did to stay beautiful and untouchable were as shocking as the downfall that would one day cost her her head. When Marie Antoinette arrived in France at just 14, she was thrown into a world where every move was public. Even bathing was spectacle. Versailles had no running water, no plumbing, no toilets. But Marie's image demanded purity and elegance. She had a special bathing room built, lined with marble, perfumed with oils, and filled by servants carrying bucket after bucket of heated water. But she rarely soaked. Like Elizabeth I, water was seen as dangerous, something that could weaken the body. Instead, she cleansed herself with linen cloths dipped in rosewater and scented spirits. To be clean meant to smell sweet, not to scrub away dirt. Her teeth were another obsession. Sugar had already destroyed Elizabeth's mouth a century earlier, but in Marie's time it was still a royal luxury. The queen adored candies, jams, and sweet pastries, and the damage quickly showed. Her dentists tried to keep her smile white with powders and pastes, some made with burnt bone or crushed shells. These were harsh, scraping away enamel until her gums bled. Still, her smile was considered a mark of charm, and she refused to give it up. To Marie, a perfect appearance was more important than comfort. Perfume was the true weapon of Versailles. The palace stank with the waste of thousands of courtiers, overflowing chamber pots, and rotten food left behind from endless feasts. Marie's response was to drown the world in scent. She surrounded herself with perfumes so strong that they became part of her legend. Her gloves, her fans, even her wigs were soaked in oils of rose, orange blossom, and jasmine. She carried pomanders filled with herbs to her nose whenever the stink of the palace became too much. To the people outside, who lived among filth and famine, the queen's obsession with perfumes became a symbol of her excess. They imagined her drifting through clouds of roses while they starved in the streets. Her hair was perhaps her most famous feature, and also one of her strangest. Towering wigs, sometimes 3 feet high, became her crown. They were powdered white with flour, stiffened with animal fat, and decorated with jewels, flowers, even miniature ships to celebrate victories. These creations were so heavy she sometimes needed to sleep sitting up. They also attracted lice and smelled terrible, but that didn't matter. To be seen with the tallest, most elaborate hair was to show the world that she was above them all. Her head was a stage, and her wigs were the performance. But behind the wigs and perfumes, her body began to break. The heavy powders and paints she used to whiten her skin contained lead, just as Elizabeth's did. Over time, they scarred her face and thinned her hair. She kept layering more makeup to hide the damage, building a mask that could never be removed. Mirrors were carefully placed so she could always adjust her look, never revealing the cracks underneath. To be pale, powdered, and perfect was not about beauty. It was about class. Said, "I am untouchable. I am not like you." Her private life was no more real than her painted face. Each morning, dozens of nobles crowded her chambers to watch her rise from bed, dress, and be prepared for the day. Even something as simple as changing her linen shift was a ritual of hierarchy, with only the highest-ranking ladies allowed to hand her the cloth. Nothing about her body was private. It was an object of power, meant to be seen, scented, and staged. But reality could not be hidden forever. As France fell into famine, the queen's perfumes and gowns became symbols of cruelty. To the starving people, her very cleanliness seemed obscene. They could not imagine a queen who powdered her face with flour while children went without bread. Her illusion of freshness turned into an accusation of excess. Her scented gloves and silk gowns became proof, in their eyes, that she was not a queen of the people, but a woman living in a fantasy world while France rotted. When the revolution came, the mask shattered. The queen who had hidden her body behind perfumes and powders was dragged before the people without her silks, without her wigs, stripped of her illusion. They no longer saw a goddess of Versailles. They saw a woman human and fragile, and for that they condemned her. Marie Antoinette did not die because she was dirty or clean. She died because her cleanliness was never about health. It was about creating distance. She built herself into a symbol of untouchable beauty in a world drowning in filth. But when the people rose, that distance became her greatest crime. In the end, her perfumes, her powders, her wigs, all of it were powerless. The queen, who had spent her life fighting the smell of humanity, met her fate in the open air of the guillotine. And for the first time, the world saw her as she truly was, not a mask, not a legend, but a woman.